Well, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why is Ryan dressed so amazingly this evening? And it is a look I'm going for. It's called Cyndi Lauper Cosa Nostra.
Okay.
So 80s Cosa Nostra, and that is my opening fact. Cosa Nostra.
I don't think you would have seen Tony Soprano dead in that, to be honest.
Was he a Cyndi Lauper fan, And there's a thing. I once read a book called Secret Societies. Sorry, did I say read a book? I mean listen to the audiobook Secret Societies. Because I was driving. You can't, in traffic,
But
in
people
Joburg, you can't.
we're not going to encourage people to listen to audiobooks because when they're listening to things, it's got to be
Us.
this specific podcast.
Yes. And so
Let's make the podcast a cult. We'll have a bit of a love-in. You can't listen to anything else, any other podcasts, only this one.
2 liters, eh? 2 liters?
Well, for now, a couple years from now, Ryan's going to vanish.
There might be a little bit of a power takeover.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and there's the thing. Secret societies, would you consider them cults? The Cosa Nostra is the Sicilian Mafia. And, my fact is that, let's test your knowledge of history, but Benito El Duce Mussolini was, in fact, a member of the Cosa Nostra, the Sicilian Mafia.
Huh.
That's my fact. Then we can talk a bit about how much we know about
And
Mafia
how many
of the Godfather movies we've seen.
And is it a cult? I mean, I don't believe it is a cult. I think a cult is something that's got to have its own kind of beliefs, and it's got to have a singular leader who people look up to and worship for their opinions rather than because they're upholding a tradition. So I mean, things like, people have said the Masons, for instance, might be a cult. But, I mean, really, that's just old guys shaking hands funny, like it's not necessarily a cult. Because as far as we know, us on the outside, there aren't religious implications to what you're doing at the Masons.
Yes, and I think if you want to, one trick of these secret societies, you want to bolster your brand, make it secret, because then it gets people talking. It's just a nice little trick. I don't think it's... Is it sinister? Isn't it sinister? I don't know. But the fact that you've called it secret and made it exclusive, it gets people talking.
In many ways, the Mafia is that, right? They've got a initiation ritual when you get made. There's a whole ritual for that thing.
Donnie Brasco, what a movie. Have you seen that? Got to see Donnie Brasco.
We've been we're on our second fact and we're swerving so far.
80s music and movies. It's always going to do that in this podcast.
But so your thing is that Benito Mussolini was a member of the Mafia. I don't know this. Off the top of... I mean, my knowledge of the Mafia is exclusively limited to 80s and 90s Mafia movies. On The Sopranos, obviously, which everybody, I think, watched at some stage in their lives. But that's my kind of knowledge of the Mafia. I don't know very much about the actual Mafia. I would imagine that, the Mafia certainly put a bunch of New York mayors in power.
Yeah, man.
But so they definitely have these kind of leanings towards putting political bosses into power, and the kind of fascist organizations are often driven by the working class, which obviously the Mafia would have a lot of control over because they donate a lot of money to their communities, and now so there's possibility that they helped him to get there, whether he was a member. You're saying he was he was a made man. He was a consigliere, or he had an official position. He wasn't just some schlub.
Sure, he's a wise guy. He's a wise guy.
Okay.
Benito, he's a wise guy.
Okay.
He's a friend of a friend.
Then no, I don't think he was that guy. I don't think he was in the
You think
Mafia.
I'm lying?
I think you're lying, yeah.
Me?
I think so, yeah.
Well, I'm afraid you are spot on. I am lying. And the reason it's a very dramatic lie, because he certainly was not a member of the Sicilian Cosa Nostra. In the 20s or late 20s, after he had assumed power, he declared war on them. Okay. So they started... the history is big and complicated, but they started because it went from a feudal system to kind of ownership of land. And in that consolidation of power, the families of Sicily sort of became very close-knit and controlling of the land and stuff like that. And so there's the culture developed and the thing, and a bit of violence developed too, and all sorts of things. But by the 1920s, he tried to wipe them all out, Mussolini, and it's the reason many of the big families fled to, obviously, Massachusetts and New York. But what I didn't know is one of the big brothers, the Bambino. I don't know what his name was, but he went to Montreal, Canada. Which
Yeah,
seems to be
famous Montreal, like
some sort of
known,
mafia stronghold as well. I didn't know that.
known for their drug running, old Montreal, aren't they?
Yeah, oh, but
I don't know. They're not.
know.
As far as I know, they're only
lovely
known,
city,
known for the
man.
Winter Olympics.
Yeah, but I mean, so Mussolini could be the reason that the Sicilian mafia or the Cosa Nostra went across the Atlantic and bolted, because he did manage to almost destroy the whole ecosystem of Western Sicily. And the other thing about the Cosa Nostra is, if you think about Italy and Sicily, Sicily being the island, you think, the mafia is so hectic in terms of revenge and honor code and stuff, but they were so religious and Catholic. Controversially, the author of Secret Society seems to think that the reason their eye for an eye and their revenge thing is so deeply entrenched was not necessarily their Catholicism, which Sicily sort of migrated toward, but was because when they were a Islamic Emirati at some point, and the kind of the more sort of Islamic way of honor, revenge. I don't know. It's controversial. I know. The author knows it's controversial, but he's like, that stuff never really left Sicily, even with the turn the other cheekness of Catholicism. It's like, family, honor. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, yeah. Whether
Whether
it's a
it's a
cult,
cult.
whether it's a cult, yeah. I mean, but let's go with it. As you say,
Ooh.
secret society, cult. Yeah, we're gonna have to define that at some point. I
I
suppose.
know.